Afternoon everybody, Rich here, back for another video for the Diecast F1 review. Here today is another comparison video. This time it is the turn of the Williams FW15 and 15C by Minichamps, Paul's Model Art and Quartzo. The car in the distance is the Quartzo version, and the car in front is, well, the car closest to us is the Minichamps version. The Williams FW15C started life as sort of plan B for, well, the 1992 season. The car was designed for the 1992 season, or at least the halfway point of the season, but as the FW14B, the predecessor to this car, was doing so well, they thought they'd just develop this thing and make it as bulletproof as possible for 1993. Yeah, the car was originally designed for that time. Originally designed under the FW15 name, but the FW15 never raced until it was up to its C specification going into 1993. By that time, everything and all the goodies had been put into the car: anti-lock brakes, active suspension, launch control, all things like that made the car, well, as bulletproof and as technically superior, I should say, to the other cars as possible. And I think it goes to show that it's the most technically advanced Formula 1 car to date, even though we have today fancy power units with ERS, DRS, and, well, not DRS, but ERS and power internal combustion engine, as well as batteries and all things like that. These cars here are some of the best, or the best, in terms of technology. You know, different components with the suspension, the brakes, and all those things around there, with fancy gearboxes as well. Sorry, I'm rambling, but these cars were absolutely top of the class. But the car didn't start its racing career until 1993, and it pretty much started off how Williams expected it to be. The car was front row lockout pretty much in the first round, won its first round, but it soon turned out to be not as good a season as Williams had planned, as Alain Prost and both Damon Hill were making mistakes early in the season. Damon Hill spinning off it on the first lap of the South African Grand Prix, and Alain Prost spinning off during the Brazilian Grand Prix during that torrential downpour, and also Alain Prost having problems during the European Grand Prix round 3, stalling his engine about 20 times while in the pits. But it didn't take long for Williams to regain their composure, with 10 wins throughout the season, 7 for Alain Prost and 3 for Damon Hill. It was enough to seal the Constructors and Drivers' Championship for Alain Prost. Prost taking the championship with 2 rounds still to go. Not quite as dominant as Nigel Mansell had been the year before, but still good enough for Alain Prost and Williams at the time. Damon Hill also could have had another 2 to 3 victories in his tally, but late race problems forced him to retire from the British and the German Grand Prix, both races he could have easily won. But he did get his revenge going into Hungary. Technically the car was as superior as it could be, but on pace it was matched by McLaren early in the season, as Ayrton Senna picked up victories in round 2 and round 3 of the season, also winning in Monaco and then the final 2 rounds in Japan and Australia. Both tracks at the end of the season which didn't really suit the Williams. Also failing to win the Portuguese Grand Prix that year, which Michael Schumacher took that year. Excuse me. So yes, the FW15 or /15C was revolutionary in every term. It's just a shame the car was banned going into 1994. The team had also developed a CVT version of the car. That if you look up the car, it is basically the 15 painted all blue with a fancy transmission gear. I think it's I can't remember what it was. It was something to do with a variable transmission, sort of basically a fully automatic gearbox, but or transmission. But I haven't done a full research on that because it was so sketchy and not a lot of photographs, not a lot of information was written down about it, and the car was never raced, so it never fully developed. So that thing was pretty much non-existent in comparison. But there we go, the FW15 or 15C, a car which could have gone a long way, but sadly rules made it not so. And it's just a shame that the Formula 1 had to change. Some for the better, but definitely for the worse at that time. They're gone were the days of the absolutely stunningly beautiful cars, i.e. these ones. But hey ho, there we go. And that's Formula 1 for you. But yeah, performance-wise, the car was dominant, but Alain Prost had his problems with the car. He found it inconsistent, really. The car was difficult to drive, I'd say. what he said. It's sort of inconsistent going through corners. The car wanted to jump or just become unbalanced for unnecessary reasons. I think Senna said the same thing as well during testing when he took the FW15D, which is basically this car but with all the electronics removed, and tested the car. Found it to be fast but inconsistent, but didn't stop them winning the championship that year. But it's a shame, like I said, the car had to be retired. It could have gone on for at least another season, and the way things were going, the Williams was going to be legendary in all rounds. Like the FW14 before it rather, it was an absolute stunner. And this is sort of the tidied up version of the FW14, if you like. It is a sleeker, narrower. Well, I say a bit narrower because of the tyres, but this is a sleeker, taller, definitely more curvy, more exotic looking car. But that's the way things go. Formula 1 has to evolve. And in my opinion, this is how Formula 1 should look. But enough about that, let's get on to the models themselves. And of course there are two models here. Like I said at the beginning, there is the Quartzo version in the background here, and the Minichamps version in the foreground here. Now, what I was going to do is a comparison video. So I move the Quartzo one out of the way first, this heavy lump, and knock the camera over in the process. So now move into the Minichamps version. Now this Minichamps version is a first edition car. I don't think this one has ever been reissued, but there is going to be a reissue coming Sunday, according to Minichamps and on their website and other websites, that this car is going to be reissued for Alain Prost's championship year. Hopefully with a driver in the car as well, because this is the first model. I think it's one of the first models that Minichamps have produced as well, produced right at the end of 1993. And of course they're saying that there's no driver in the car, which sort of backs up that theory there. And overall, it is an absolutely stunning car. The only downside I have with this car is that the nose is slightly too fat. If you look at the nose, it is a little bit too wide, but it's not a huge issue. But the Quartzo version has an issue as well, but it's not with the nose. The nose on the Quartzo version is slightly narrower, makes it look a little bit better. But that's the only downside to this car, and that's the only thing I'm going to point out as a flaw. So if I turn it up, so you have a view of the nose from the side. You can see it is quite chunky, but it is quite a steep nose as well. I don't know if it's the camera doing that or it's the actual nose itself. It's quite a stubby nose, but it's not an issue. It's not something that you can hold back against it. I mean, it is a stunning car all round with the camel livery. Even though it's non-tobacco, you can still tell it's camel because, well, there's a camel on it. So that's that. Have a quick look around the car. If I move it a bit closer to the camera, and then we get our zoomy lens on. So I go from the nose, all the fancy adverts there, all the ones you remember. Over the nose there, the Renault, the Elf, the camel there. Also got the Sonic legs down there. Also quite highly detailed there. Never realised how crisp that decal is. But hey ho, look around into the cockpit. I'll come back to the cockpit in a minute. We'll go along the side pod, along the Canon badge there, the camel along the side, Goodyear badge, all those fancy bits there. Then you got the Sega on the rear wing, the rear tyres, of course narrower tyres for 1993 as well, but not a big issue. Return back, we'll turn the car back this way. So have a look through the rear diffuser, through the rear wing. You can see all the fancy gubbins there, and an all-round very nice car shape-wise. You can see that there's quite a bulky, chunky list to the rear bodywork there, but that's the way it's sculpted. Nothing against it there. Let me go and zoom in on the cockpit if we can get a clean view of the cockpit. And you see the dials on the, the LED LCD readout behind the steering wheel there, and the single button in the middle of the steering wheel. No real details there on the steering wheel, but just a red button in the middle. And if we tip the car over, I don't know what that was, something made a noise. If we tip the car up and look into the cockpit, you've got painted seat belts there in the seat, and all the buckles there. You've got Damon Hill's badge on the side there. Of course, this is number 0, Damon Hill's car. So look around there, cockpit, and very shiny paintwork as well. It's very rare to find a car, this car in this good a condition. I mean, this is 23 years old now, and it's pretty much pristine condition. A bit dusty because I think the box has got a split in the plastic, but it's not a big issue. The box, by the way, is that thing over there. That's the Minichamps box of the time, Grand Prix 93, and it's blue for some reason, but there you go. And also, difference to the Quartzo version, that this car has two different badges on different sides. On the right hand side we have the Sega, and of course on the left we have the Sonic legs. on the side of the cockpits, or on the side of the chassis at least. So that's something different there, and it's something, I think it's something they sort of changed throughout the season. Sort of one race they had the legs, one race they had the Sega badge, and then some races they had both on either side. So it's that's something different there. And this profile picture, looking at it from here, does look pretty good. Another thing I can do is turn the car around, and then we tippy uppy. There we go. So it's basically just a flat bottom. So this was just labelled as the 15. It's not called the 15C, which was the actual race car. Even on the box it says just the FW15. So it's not been it's either been labelled properly or not. I don't know. We look under the nose, and the suspension got the big fin on the side of the front wing. And, nothing really to look at under there. Of course, a flat bottom. Something that wasn't going to be for a very long time, or wasn't going to be for a long time, or whatever. Get that dust out of the way. So yeah, overall, an absolute stunner, and definitely a 10 out of 10. I'd say definitely one for the collection. Despite the bulkiness of the nose, it doesn't detract it too much, and it's one of those things that it just happened to be that way. But like I said, it's the first. But one of the first F1 models Minichamps produced, probably the first, and it's due for a release, or it's due for a re-release, but it's sort of been that way for about 10 years, so I'm not really sure when they're going to do it. Minichamps have only just started reissuing the FW14, no, actually just released the FW14 beer. They haven't re-released it, they just released it, first time, because they had the FW14, and they just released the B spec. So really, they ought to be getting on to re-releasing this model, hopefully with the driver in the car. But we'll see, and hopefully they'll remold the nose as well. But that's that. So anyway, that's the Minichamps version. Now I've done the plus and the negatives of this car. Price-wise, this car tends to be either very expensive or very cheap, depending on the day. Really, if it's a weekend, this thing goes for ridiculous amounts of money on eBay. But sometimes it can go for as cheap as £10–15, which doesn't make sense. I suppose it depends on who's bidding over, and there you go. But this one is pretty much pristine condition, and the box is pretty much pristine. There's a few marks on the box, but that's not going to detract the price too much. And I say this is as top quality, or as top as it's going to be. The wing mirrors are all there, the suspension's all intact, the front wing's all there, the rear wing's all there, the tyres are unblemished. There's no scratches to the paintwork. This is probably as pristine as it's going to get. The only issue I've got with it is it's out in the open at the moment, and it's starting to collect dust. But hey ho, there you go. This car, it's not a solid car by any means. I mean, there are a few fragile bits, like the wing mirrors are usually something that goes pretty early with these things. If you're gonna if you're going to get this car, then keep it in the box, because the wing mirrors are one of the weakest. Well, it was always the weakest point of a model, but there you go. But the front wing is pretty solid. The rear wing is pretty solid as well, despite the flimsy. It looks pretty flimsy, but it is quite solidly on there. So that's that. So it's not going to detract from the price, or detract. I mean, it's not going to damage too easily. But there you go. And also, this car was re-released as well as a show car or a launch version for the FW16. It's basically this car repainted in the Rothmans colour scheme, but slightly, looks cheap in comparison to the actual FW16. They haven't painted it all properly, and there's no there's no hash markings on the side or the rear wing. They've actually just painted Williams on the side. It looks cheap, but I think it's just mainly a promotional thing. It doesn't look right. If you compare it to the FW16 proper, then it just looks weird. But I think it's just something to co-op. What's the word? It's meant to sort of be a promotional thing for when Senna tested the car in the full livery, and Williams launched the livery. But it's just something that if you want to pick that one up, then by all means. If you're a Senna collector, then it's probably a model for you. But it's not for me. I'd rather just stick to this one and the proper FW16. But there we go. So anyway, that's the Minichamps one out the way. I shall put it out the way, and we bring in the Quartzo version. There we go. I've got the light on it. Yeah. So here we are, the Quartzo version. Bit of dust on it, which is a bit of a shame. But you can almost tell the difference almost immediately. The tyres are a bit chunkier on this model compared to the Minichamps version, but the overall appearance is pretty much the same. You've got a driver in the car, of course, and also the nose is a bit more shrunken compared to the Minichamps version. You can see the nose is a bit more to the scale. It's narrow, it's very thin, and looks pretty good. And yeah, there you go. And also this model is, because it's Quartzo, it has removable engine panel, but I'll get to that in a minute, because hopefully I'll be able to get that into the video, because I just recently had to redo the FW15B review because I couldn't get the engine cover off last time, so I just had to redo that. Hopefully I'll be able to do it this time and do that there. But you got a few, you got a wibbly aerial there. You also got rubbery wing mirrors as well. These come in, these are very handy because if I just zoom in, the rubbery wing mirrors are part of the removing the engine cover, so that's why they're there. Also just knocked the tripod, which didn't help. But yeah, overall the Quartzo model is as good, if not slightly, well, I don't know, it's sort of on par with the Minichamps version. This one has its problems as well. I'll get to them in a minute, but we'll do a quick zoom over the 15C. This is actually called a 15C as well. It's got the proper numbering on the bottom of the car and the box. So we'll start with the nose, basically the same thing, front wing with the nose. A bit more carbon detailing on this car. They've put decals on with the carbon detailing, as you can see, on the nose, on the front wing rather. Decals with the carbon detail. And over the nose, got Alain Prost in the cockpit there. Rubber with rubber shoulder straps. Got the centre feet down there. I think there's a paint chip on the logo there as well, which is a bit annoying. But so not to matter there. Got the Prost name on the side there, and then you got a big panel gap there where the engine cover is connected. But you got rivets and detailing on the side of the car as well. You got all things like that. Got the Goodyear at the side, and then you get to the rear wing. The rear wing has more carbon detailing on it, and the center, the Sonic logo on the rear of the car is different as well. You actually got Sonic on the rear wing. Or if we look at the Minichamps version over there, it's a different logo. So you just got Sega there on the Minichamps one. Quartzo, you got Sonic the Hedgehog there. And also you got some nice riveting detail on the or rivet detail for the rear wing there as well. And like I said, more carbon detailing there. And if we move the Minichamps one out of the way and go back to the Quartzo one, turn the car around and get a profile look of the car. See the car like that. Zoom in with the bodywork. See more carbon detailing, especially on the bottom of the floor as well, around the rear wing. You see all the detail there. Suspension doesn't have any detailing on it, but it's pretty solid there. The rear wing is also slightly pissed, as you can see. It's slightly twisted, which it should be a bit straighter, but it's actually fixed on pretty solidly. That's why it won't bend back. So I'm not going to try and force it. So that's a nice profile of the car there. Now I'll try and get a look in the cockpit. I'll just move the car around again. Try and get a look in the cockpit. We've got a bit more detailing on the steering wheel, even though you can't see much of it. You've got all the buttons on the steering wheel there, and quite a wide windscreen as well, which is a bit annoying. But you can see the dust on it as well. It hasn't been out very long, but I think this is when I had the car out before. It gathered a bit of dust. So I shall get the paintbrush out in a minute and give it a brush off. But if you look over the side pods, you can see not really painted rivets, but you can see the rivets where they're meant to go on the white bodywork. There's a rivet there, one there, and one up there. I think they should have painted them a bit, but there you go, and a few more there. So you got plenty of rivet design things as well. You also got the E logo there with the pull pin there, the camera. Now I just sort of pondering with this one, because the FW14 I reviewed before had metal suspension, but this one is, I think that's metal as well, because it's quite solid. That's metal. That's proper die-cast metal there. So the suspension is quite solid on this thing, and the wheels don't feel like they're going to fall off. They're actually quite well held on. They're very stiff. The front wheels. It doesn't roll all that well. If I just move it, it doesn't roll all that well, because the rear axle is a bit stiff. And also the front wheel there is a bit stiff as well, so it doesn't roll all that well, but not a big issue. I have a profile this way around so you can see the car. Very nice view of it as well, with the light shining on it. It's actually a very nice looking car, and definitely one of Quartzo's better models. and for the price I paid for it, you know, it's bloody amazing. So look over the front wing again, over the nose. Yeah, absolute cracker of a car. So what we do now is I'll put the camera down, zoom the camera out, and try and remove that engine cover. So if I turn it around this way, and this is the problem I had before. I couldn't down the bit there that all the bodywork was moulded around the suspension, but this car doesn't have that problem. It's just around the wing mirrors you've got to watch. So there's 4 retaining screws on this car. So if I just lift the bottom up, and you can see underneath, you can see the tripod. You can see there's 4 retaining screws. There's one there which has already been taken out, and there's another one there, another one further down. So there's 4 screws on this one, whereas on the 14 it just had 2 screws. This one has 4, and it really, that engine cover, it really does make the car feel weighty. So I mean, it weighs an absolute ton, this car does. Right, well anyway, we've got the engine cover unscrewed. So what we'll do, we'll pinch together the wing mirrors, then we'll lift the engine cover over, and there we go. And there we have all the engine in its beauty and glory. I think it's slightly more detailed than that of the 14. We've got more components here. We've got all the hard drives and telemetry bits and bobs, all things like that, and loads of wires, cables, carbon detailing. I mean, it's absolutely cracker with all the detail in there. All the gubbins in there. Got the chromed exhausts. Got bits on top of the radiators. Got the engine there, the big Renault V10, 3.5 litre, and then you got all the active suspension gubbins there, all loads of hydraulic cables and wires and all sorts of things going on there. Loads of things going on with this car. There's a bit of detail in there. If I just turn it around again and get a sort of a top view of it all, and we'll see over the top of the suspension. And good golly, there's an awful lot on this car. Never really appreciated it before, but my god, the detailing on this thing. And you can see all the hydraulic compression springs there. Got the drive shaft as well into the gearbox. There's massive amounts of detail here. So turn it around again and we'll have a ponder at the other side. And once again, you got more cables and hard drives and things on the side there, all these black boxes. Massive amounts of detail. And also you've got the radiators there. Huge amounts of detail. And can't appreciate it more. It's just something Minichamps really ought to take a look at. You know, really they can put a lot of detail into this. And Quartzo have done a fantastic job with it all. I mean, look at all the details there. And it doesn't it's not all plastic as well. It's not light. It's very heavy stuff, that back end of that car. I mean, as I've taken the engine cover off, unscrewed it all, and if I lift the car up, it's actually bending in the middle because of all the weight being transferred. I mean, the only thing that's holding it together is the floor. I mean, the weight between there and there is bending the car. So and actually there's some of the rubber's starting to dissolve on it. Yeah, some of these bits are rubber and they're a bit soft, so I think they're starting to dissolve a bit, which is a bit annoying, but there you go. So they're made out of rubber and they're a bit sticky, so yeah, avoid touching them. But yeah, the car is sort of being bent in half now because the engine cover's off. You've only got the floor holding the car together. So, but huge amounts of detail, as you just seen. And have another look over it again. So you look through down to the exhaust and through the engine that way. Plenty of carbon detailing as well. You can see all through there. And then over the top. And then we zoom out. But yeah, definitely something Quartzo can be proud about, because this is absolutely stunning model. So readjust the camera again. Now I move the car to one side without touching those gooey bits. Just bring the engine cover back in. Now this is a heavy lump of metal. I mean, that is all metal. And on the inside, it's not been painted at all. It's just painted white. So on the previous car, the FW15, it was all painted black, but they just left it white on this one. But you can see the 4 retaining screws, all the screw holes. That's where it's all fastened together. And yeah, it's just big, heavy chunk of metal. That. Ooh. But that's the engine cover. Probably worth about £1,000 on its own, but I won't be selling it. So just move that out of the way. Bring the car back in. There. and now I'm going to try and refit it. But you can see down there through the suspension, this is the problem the previous car had, is those white bits there where it goes through the suspension were actually moulded onto the rear body panel of the 14 on the previous model. That's why I couldn't get it off properly, but they've actually done it properly on this car, so the engine cover is much easier to remove. Right, so now to put it back on, you get the engine cover and then you pop it on there, and then you drop it down there, and then you've got to try and fiddle around the wing mirror. So pop those ones together, squeeze them together, and there we go. That's all put back together. So that's the all the engine covered back up. I haven't put the screws back. I'll put them in back later on. But anyway, we'll bring in the Minichamps version again and put these cars together. And yeah, two cracking models. Two I would recommend. Well, I'll just go back onto the price of the Quartzo version. I'll just bring the car back in. The Quartzo version, the price I paid for it doesn't really add up with the quality. The quality is absolutely top notch, but the price I paid for the car was £10. And the reason for that was I bought it at the Goodwood Festival of Speeds back in 2008, and they had pallet loads of these cars. I mean, hundreds of them just stacked on a pallet. And they were charging £10 each for them. I wish I picked up more of them, because the price of them has just gone through the roof. But yeah, £10. And I've still got the price tag on the box. If I just bring the box down, yeah, if you look, £10 is what it says on the box. That's what it cost, and I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one who regrets not buying an absolute shitload of those cars, because could have gone on eBay. I could have put them on today and probably made about £50,000 out of it. But hey ho, there we go. So I just zoom the cars out again, try and get them in the profile, make them look good together. I mean, having two cars together is a real pain in the ass, but anyway, there we go. But yeah, the price of that Quartzo model at the time was ridiculous, and the price now is, I don't know what the price is nowadays, because they're so rare. They're not common, those Quartzo models, and if you can pick one up for the same price I did, then you're a better person than I am. But yeah, they don't come up on eBay very often, and I think they were due for a reissue. I mean, they did have preview pictures of the Damon Hill version for the Hungarian Grand Prix with the added extra rear wing on top of the car, or on top of the rear wing, but that never came to anything. That was never released. So yeah, it's one of those disappointments. But either car, Damon Hill or Alain Prost, are both very rare these days. So yeah, you're not going to be seeing the Quartzo model too soon, but hey ho, there you go. But yeah, the Quartzo model is definitely one to have. They're both very good to have. I mean, you know, if you're quality or you want detail, I mean, the Quartzo one looks good on display, but with the engine cover off, then you can marvel at the details. But the Minichamps one is one you can store in the box and looks good in the box or on a shelf. You know, it's a good all-round model. Just doesn't have the detail under the covering, under the engine cover. But overall, I'll give them both a 10, because they're both absolutely amazing cars, and I love them to bits. So well, I say love them to bits, but it's they're cars that you know, I like a lot. So yeah, they're definitely ones for the collection, and I would recommend them. But that's pretty much all I've got to say about them. But anyway, this is Rich signing off, logging off and disappearing, and I shall return with another review. So bye for now.